We got Pistons to talk about today, Gator. Ausar Thompson, the pick at 5. And my immediate takeaway, Monty Williams going to have his work cut out for him.
That was your immediate takeaway?
Immediate takeaway. And maybe it's a good thing because you got a $100 million coach. But, Gator, I don't understand how this is going to work floor spacing-wise. I don't understand how you're going to play Cade, Ivy, Thompson, Duren, presumably Isaiah Stewart, or a double big because that's Weaver's thing. How you're going to play that 5 down the line as your core nucleus. They better develop some shooters among that group. Monty Williams better earn $100 million and make that team cohesively work together because, Gator, I didn't like the pick last night.
Well, I wasn't – look, I wanted Cam Whitmore. You wanted Cam Whitmore. He slid and slid and slid and slid and kept sliding. I mean, all the way down to, where was he? At 20?
20 to the Rockets. By the way, have this little budding rivalry now with the Pistons.
Yeah, because of the two brothers.
Well, and Caden.
Well, and then you got Cade and Jalen Green, too. Yeah, there's a lot going on there, I guess. But, at first I was like, oh, this is underwhelming a little bit. And then you start to think about it. This guy, wasn't he the 2-time MVP of the G League?
Halle Berry? Yeah, he was.
Why are you calling him Halle Berry?
Well, that's what Troy Weaver referenced. Because it was the whole deal. Well, because that was what I was going to reference, Gator. Yeah, he was great in a league of 16-year-olds with 6 teams.
Well, they weren't 16.
They're 16 to 20, that's the league. It's 16 to 20-year-olds. He's the oldest in a league of teenagers with 6 total teams.
Right.
Troy Weaver's point was Halle Berry looks great in a grocery store or church. Great, you took Halle Berry.
Fair enough. I'm just saying, this is 2 years in a row that he was the MVP in a league that featured his brother, who was taken ahead of him, who apparently nobody has a problem with. But, and is actually a worse shooter.
Sure.
So,
neither of them are good shooters.
The thing that I don't mind is this. I'm not thrilled with the pick. Let me just state that right now. Okay.
Ahead.
I'm not thrilled with the pick. I want somebody that's got a ton of offensive upside or already has the upside. It's there. And then, has a higher ceiling than what we're already seeing. What I do like about it is that right away he steps in and he's an excellent defender. Probably the best defender on the team because it's a team that lacks defense.
Yeah.
And if you ask yourself what are the number 1 and 2 things this team needs to add to make them better as a team, rather than just saying a player, what style, they got to be better defensively first and foremost. And yes, you need to find a way to shoot better too. You asked the question, how do you find space for him? I don't think there's any problem at all. He's 6'7". Just because it says guard next to his name doesn't mean that he has to play a guard. Okay, it's a positionless basketball now. You've got 3 guys out there that you can call quote-unquote guards, but when you throw Ausar Thompson out there, I'm expecting that he's going to D up the biggest threat that the other team has. And I'm okay with that. I don't love the fact that he's not a great shooter, that he'll be a work in progress, but you know who else was a work in progress? Mikal Bridges. Okay, and did Monty do okay with developing him?
Well, that's what I said. If Monty,
he started off as a 43% shooter in the league and developed into a 53% shooter in the league after a couple of years.
If Monty is as advertised and develops this group and finds Gator, the issue to me is spacing, not what position they play.
You understand what I'm saying?
5 guys on the floor. But if nobody respects any of them as shooters, Ivy was a below-average shooter coming out of college. Thompson is a below-average shooter. You're going to play 2 bigs. Cade was a good shooter in college, but hasn't done it yet in the pros. I believe in him, but you got to play 4 shooters on the floor in the NBA today. You're going to play maybe 1. That's an issue. Now, maybe Monty gets Thompson up to a respectable level and Ivy up to a respectable level, and Stewart either isn't a starter or they replace him with someone in free agency that can shoot at a respectable level. But the long-term vision of these 4 guys, Ivy, Duren, Cade, and Thompson, are all concerns from a floor spacing combo.
I'm not concerned about Jaden Ivey. I'm not concerned about Cade Cunningham because they're so young and they're so dynamic as players. They're going to get better. They're going to improve. I have no doubt in my mind Jaden Ivey is going to be better. This guy's a hard worker. All he knows is basketball. It's all he's doing. He was the guy that was there before Monty Williams was the day that they had the press conference, right? Mm-hmm. He was already in the gym working out. He's going to be a better shooter. I love what he can do offensively. We didn't even get to see those guys on the floor for more than, 10 games or 12 games, whatever it was together.
Mm-hmm.
And Cade Cunningham averaged more points per game than he did the previous year, and then he gets hurt and he's out. Jalen Duren coming back for another year. It's strong. This team is so athletic that I think we're going to see a different kind of basketball. Is Detroit going to be reinventing a little bit of what the league is used to? I mean, we've been accustomed for the last 5 years of seeing nothing but three-point shooting. They're more one way to skin a cat. You don't always have to be a three-point shooting team. If you've got a team that is so fast and so dynamic and athletic, and you can score at a high pace, at a high rate, I'd rather take a bunch of two-point shots that you're going to make it 60% of the time than jack a bunch of threes and hit them at 30% of the time or 35% of the time. Would I like to see another shooter? Absolutely. Does Sasser provide that? Maybe a little bit. I mean, he was a really good three-point shooter in college. But that's another guard. That's the strange part about it is you're adding. Now that's a true guard you're adding to the mix.
Yeah.
Although another really good defender, which again is what this team needs. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a theme. Go ahead.
The draft picks, it feels like this is incomplete at the moment because we haven't seen free agency yet. So I expect them to be active in free agency or trades still. Because if you're, looking at this, we've already, like you mentioned, the starting five, who you omitted?
Who?
It was Bojan Bogdanović,
sure.
who's the best shooter of the bunch.
But Gator, this is my point long term. The draft, and they're going to tell you that Thompson's not a finished product. This is a long-term vision. They only won 17 games last year.
Yeah.
Bogdanović is in his 30s, mid-30s now, right? The idea that he's going to be here for the next 3 or 4 years,
he's not.
So I'm trying to understand Troy Weaver's vision, and I guess this is my biggest complaint. I get if the identity and the focus of this draft was defense. In that instance, they nailed it.
Yeah, it's a home run on defense. It's
Thompson,
not sexy, but there it is.
Thompson and Sasser, who I like the Sasser pick more just based on where they were drafted. Yeah. Sasser's a dude that's going to be a bulldog on the ball. Thompson the same way. This team gave up too many blow-bys to the basket. They were one of the 3 worst defensive teams. From that standpoint, mission freaking accomplished. But Troy Weaver has done this thing since he's gotten here where he's accumulated assets, right? He took the best player available last night. No one's disputing that, especially with Whitmore having issues.
Yeah.
They took the best player available. No one can dispute that. But eventually, you have to find pieces that fit together. This isn't your first or second draft. This isn't the first or second pick. You can't just collect assets. Eventually, you need to build a team. And I don't know how these guys fit together as a core long-term as a team. And that's the thing no one brings up with Weaver. Like, dude, you can't just be building spreadsheets full of assets. You got to build a basketball team, and it can't be by year 6 or 7. It's got to be like now. So it's got to be Monty Williams that cleans up his mess or a big free agent that ties it all together.
Yeah, and I would expect both of those things to happen. That's why you hired Monty Williams. That's why you're paying him more than anybody else in the NBA to coach a basketball team. And there's no way they make this pick at 5 without talking to Monty Williams.
Of course.
So I'm not optimistic. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because I do believe in Monty Williams. I also believe with what I've seen in the last 2 years in Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and Jalen Duren, I think that's a really good triumvirate of players to have. And now you're adding to it. What did you add? You added 2 defensive players here. You still have a big chip to trade in Bogdanović. You want to trade Isaiah Stewart, you can do that too. You don't have to, but you can. What's the next move for the Pistons to calm people down? Because, yeah, I understand people run a little hot. You and I both hit Twitter last night.
Yep.
Got plenty of responses, plenty of hot takes, plenty of eye rolls, and people that were really pissed off. And I get it. I totally understand it. But this is what's interesting because, and I put this in my show sheet. I don't think we're getting to it today, but there was, Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk was talking about, does the NFL need to start doing the draft before free agency, which is what the NBA does. The NFL, I love what the NFL does. The NFL does, you do free agency first, and then you do the draft because you can fill your needs. You know what you got to do. Well, now the Pistons have drafted. Now we're waiting for free agency. You got to do something in free agency. And it's not an easy sell to come to Detroit, particularly with a team that just won 17 games. But you do have a likable coach. You do have some young talent that people may want to play with. And you've got some familiarity with some people that actually are free agents. Can they do something?